You're watching Global Insights, where we speak to experts from around the world to hear their views on issues making headlines. I'm Young. Now, today we talk about the trends we've seen in global businesses this year, from remote working to silent quitting, and what's ahead in the new year. For this, we're joined by Hee-dong, Professor of Business Administration at Ewha Women's University, and Sarah Park, Career Lead and Senior Manager of Global Service Transformation Asia Pacific at GP. Very warm welcome to you both. And my first two questions to you, Professor Yang. It's, again, always lovely to see you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Loving your tie, very festive. And,
Thank you.
Well, it seems that remote work is no longer really an option for most people looking for work around the world. It seems more like a must-have condition. And in that sense, do you think remote or hybrid commute options, they're also becoming more popular in South Korea?
Well, first of all, we need to be aware that Korea is one of the hardest working countries in the world. Here is very interesting, the report from OECD, that last year, the Korean people used to work over 1,915 hours per year, which is about 200 hours more than the OECD, the 38 countries average, and also almost 560 hours more than the Germany, which is worked the least, with about 1,349 hours per year. Well, but here's another interesting report from the KEF, the Korea Enterprise Federation. They had a survey over the large 100 companies in Korea. And their question is about intensity and the trends about the remote work, the work from home. And over 73% of the top 100 companies are still maintaining the remote work and work from home. But 73% of the respondents answered that their productivity is deteriorated by over 10%. And about 52% of respondents estimate that their working, the condition will get back before the COVID-19. So if you ask me if the remote work will maintain after the COVID-19, I'm pretty much pessimistic about the estimation, because our culture still prefers to work face-to-face and offline.
Right, I see. But I can think of a certain cohort of people who might be quite unhappy about that. Generation Zs, as we call them, they seem to have very sort of different preferences when it comes to most things socially, culturally, economically in the workplace. So what are the sort of top priorities that they place when they're actually looking for a job?
Well, first of all, we need to have a very clear definition about these four different generations after World War II. I mean, baby boomers were born between 1946 through mid-1960s. And Generation X, including me, were born between mid-1960s through 1970s. And Generation Y, so-called millennials, were born in 1980s. And Generation Z was born in year 2000s. Well, the first two generations, baby boomers and Generation X, do care about the families, and they also care about their careers. So the hustle is the keyword that may characterize their mindset in their working place. But the second two generations, in other words, Generation Y millennials and Gen Z, have a different mindset. They do care more about their own personal lives, which is the privacy. So they do care about YOLO. You may have heard this term, YOLO. You live, only live once, and the work-life balance, and FIRE, 74, financial independence, and retirement early. And now they start talking about the quiet quitting. Quiet quitting means after you get out of your working place, stop thinking about your work. So all this trend, converges down to one simple word. In other words, they do care about their own personal life, more than anything else. That is the big mindset for new generations, and millennials and the Z generations, and all the employers and even the government need to care about this new mindset from these young generations.
Right, I see. So businesses, they have been trying to get used to this kind of change in mentality of their younger workers. And Sarah, other things that global businesses they're having to consider is when they're looking to expand abroad. Foreign companies in South Korea, for instance, they deal with some very tough labor laws here, and getting through those regulations, that's always something that is quite challenging. And well, in terms of doing that, then what are the biggest bottlenecks here?
That's a good question. I think not only for South Korea itself specifically, but for all places in the world, globally speaking, the biggest bottleneck that we're seeing is the entity setup itself, because that's the first step that a business needs to take to begin operating and hiring and, begin functioning as a business in the country that they plan to expand into. So when we're looking at Korea as an example, the labor laws here are, as you said, very tough and complex, and one mistake in the beginning of an entity setup can lead to years of problems following that. And closing an entity in Korea can be even more complex than opening it to begin with. So what GP does to provide a solution there is that we have our global employment platform that acts as an EOR, or an employer of record. And what that means is that a company that would like to expand overseas and to grow their business does not have to set up the business physically or go through the whole entity setup process in the country they would like to work in. GP can handle that for them and leave all of the stress off of their hands. And additionally to that, we also handle the compliance aspect. We handle the legal, the payroll, the back end, the boring stuff that companies don't have time to deal with. And they can really focus their time into what really matters, which is moving your business quickly. In this current job and business landscape, we don't have time to really wait months, years to set up a business. You have to really move quickly and be agile and flexible. Otherwise, you have competitors that will come in and swoop you off your feet. So that's what GP provides a solution for, to help businesses really be on top of the game and move quickly.
Right, and on top of these regulations, what companies are really dealing with all over the world is really a shortage of talent, basically. There's a huge shortage of workers globally, and you mentioned that in your recent report by GP. You recommend that employees really look at employees with a lot of soft skills, you said, as opposed to hard skills. So what really is the what's the distinction between hard and soft skills?
Right. That's a good question. So I think, let me give you an example that puts this in a real world experience. So let's take the example of a surgeon. So the hard skills of a surgeon would be the medical knowledge, right? Knowing those terms, the terminology, suturing, cutting, sewing, those are what we call hard skills that are required technically to be able to do your job, and they can be measured in a numerical and empirical way. The soft skills are the things that you cannot measure very easily. They're the intangible. So the soft skills of a surgeon, we would say, would be his bedside manners, his ability to connect and empathize with his patients, his ability to work with other doctors and other teams, nurses in the hospital. Those would be his soft skills. And actually, taking it back to the corporate sense, a lot of recruiters for companies in the past only looked at hard skills. They only looked at the tangible before they, employed new talent. And now we're seeing that in this job market, if you hire someone who only has the hard skills and does not have those soft skills, the empathy, the ability to work with different cultures, it can lead to a lot of issues and complicate things for the company. So a lot of recruiters are looking really importantly, especially for leadership positions, for those soft skills, for those empathy traits, for that emotional intelligence, to really find those candidates who really have the top skills in the soft skills department.
Right, I see. And Professor Yang, now South Korea now it's mulling a change to its maximum hours of work per week, which is currently 52 hours a week. But would you say that this is necessary for the Korean economy? Is this good or bad news for workers, and can there be a win-win solution?
Well, let me call your attention to a very significant report from a congressman of the Basic Income Party in Korea. And he announced that there were more 2,500 casualties from the overwork in the last 5 years, between 2017 through 2021. That means more than 500 people per year have died of the overwork. But this number doesn't include the self-employment and also plan for workers who do not benefit from industrial accident insurance. So my point here is that's why the Korean government has maintained very strict regulations over the working hours and also over time. So at the moment, we regulate over the statutory working hours by day and week. But this issue is different from the overwork time. So according to our law, our overwork time is confined to 12 hours per week. So we regulate overtime by the unit of the week. But the recent government has very informal interviews with the press by typing the market response. What if they expanded this overwork the time unit to month with the 52 hours per month. So 52 hours per month overwork means, and the current government controls over the break time 1.5 hours per day and 11 hours between days. That means we can work 11.5 hours at the maximum per day. So if you expand this number to 6 days per week, then you can work as much as 69 hours per week. But don't forget that the monthly over limit is 52 hours. So in other words, if you work 69 hours this week, just maximum working hours this week, but in the second and third and fourth weeks, you can now work more than the 69 hours. So somehow this number is over-exaggerated by the current the media. But if you ask me if this number is happy for the employers, employees, well, we should switch our attention to the working environment, working systems, rather than working hours. For example, Germany, they maintains the overwork, the saving systems. So you can save your overworking hours and use those hours to increase your vacations or to replace for your regular working hours. In Great Britain, they have maintained a zero work contract. That means your working hours is absolutely based upon your contract with your employees. And France wants to fluctuate their working hours by different ages. So if you are like 30 or 40 years old, you may incline to work very hard to make more money because you have to start to have your families. But if you are 20s and 50s, you may want to reduce your working hours. So they'll want to apply these flexible working hours by different ages. So that is, I think, the major direction of our future consideration for the working environment rather than on the working hours.
Right, so you really want to leave room for some flexibility there,
Yeah.
so you can really experiment with the system and see what works out, especially taking into consideration the nature of work.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
See, and now, Dr. Park, now we hear a lot of people say that they want to quit their jobs. They're very stressed about it, and your report was very interesting, actually, the one that you recently released on this mental health aspect of in the workplace. So, what really are the most common stress factors, and why is it important for businesses to really attend to the mental health aspect for their employees?
Right. So speaking on the stress factors, obviously there are a plethora of reasons that someone can be stressed at work, but focusing on the corporate side and the work-related side, because there are obviously many personal issues that can happen. When you have a corporate structure that is very rigid and non-empathetic, it can lead to a lot of stress for employees. And when you have a management style that also is very domineering and hierarchical, that can lead to the pressure to overwork, to be underpaid. And speaking in Korea specifically, we have the 선배, 후배 culture and 갑질. These three things that exist, so I'll explain. 선배 would be the senior, 후배 would be the junior. And you'll find that a lot of companies, especially the more traditional companies, that the 후배, the junior, cannot leave the building until the 선배 has left. So they're waiting, sitting at their desk after hours, and obviously stressed, wanting to go home, but they cannot leave because of this culture that is in the workplace. So leading this into why it's important for companies to focus on mental health and really take care of their employees. People do not want to work for companies that do not care about them and that show that they do not care about them. People want to feel like they are cared for and that their time and their experience values and matters. So if a company ignores their employees' pleas for being, tired, overworked, and if they're putting in on their weekly check-ins, I'm tired, I'm overworked, and it's ignored, they will lose that talent. And ultimately, with the global talent crunch that we're facing, companies cannot afford to lose talent, and they really need to work on retaining talent. So investing in more mental health options for your employees, really having managers get trained on how to look for the signs of burnout, how to look for those indicators of stress, read into those weekly reports. Those are things that can really help a company see the stress factors and work to improve certain cultural aspects that might add on to the stress that their employees might have. And with that being said, if companies can really get that right, they get a good image. People want to work for a good company that's highly rated. People check the internet, they'll look on social media, they'll see. And if a company has a bad reputation, they won't want to work there. But if they have a good reputation, people would flock to a company that has good reputation. That can help build your talent retention strategy.
I See, and well, that leads to my next question, Professor Yang. Now, we've heard about this great resignation of Generation Zs, not just in the US, but also in other parts of the world as well. So, are there any solutions to this problem that we're facing?
Well, this new term, great resignation, means young generations. I mean, the generation millennials and Generation Z, they are really ready to leave their working places. And here's a very interesting report that about a quota of millennials want to leave their work right away, and this number will increase to 40% for Generation Z. Well, and I just read another interesting report that they had the surveys over the MZ generations about their tendency, their preference for the new working places. And number one is they want to work in the workplace if they fit with the chemistry, with the working environment. Number two is they do care about their self-development. So in other words, if there are any organizations or companies that fit to their own tendency and do care about their personal careers, they don't care whether it's startups or public service or whatever. So that's a new trend for the new generations. In the United States, there are about 4.8 million resignations per month, but there are more, about 6.2 million job offers every month. That means still this is the buyer's market, employees market. But don't forget that they do have a very strong tendency to take care of their own personal chemistry and personal development. That's a new trend for the future, the job market.
I see. Well, thank you very much, Professor Yang Hee-dong at Ewha Women's University and Dr. Sarah Park at GP. Also, thank you very much to our viewers for tuning in. Global Insight will be back tomorrow at the same time on Arirang TV, so do tune in then. Goodbye.